from Fox 4 Dallas Fort Worth, Governor Abbott orders Texas universities to revise free speech policies to combat anti-Semitism.
Governor Gregg Abbott is ordering Texas universities to revise their free speech policies in an effort to curb anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitic incidents have been on the rise since the beginning of the current conflict between Hamas terrorists and Israel. Fox 4's Blake Hansen is live tonight with that story. Blake.
Well, okay, you can't really just revise free speech policies. You either have it or you don't. You can't just change it and say, well, you have free speech except for this. Then it all goes completely out the window. And Governor Abbott, whatever, kind of wishy-washy, maybe establishment Republican, then, made headlines, inspired several other governors to send all of the illegal migrant newcomer asylum seekers to the sanctuary cities, sanctuary states.
Migrants dropped off in Martha's Vineyard and outside the vice president's D.C. residence. The move, courtesy of the governors of Florida and Texas, a political message to blue states. Texas Governor Gregg Abbott has been busing people from the border for months, but now Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is joining him. He sent 2 planes full of about 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard, the Massachusetts island known for its wealth and its liberal views. Today, Governor DeSantis explained the move this way.
All those people in D.C. and New York were beating their chests when Trump was president, saying they were so proud to be sanctuary jurisdictions, saying how bad it was to have a secure border. The minute even a small fraction of what those border towns deal with every day is brought to their front door, they all of a sudden go berserk, and they're so upset that this is happening.
Which, of course, Eric Adams says, the sanctuary state is different from the migrant crisis. It's all a complete mess. Eric Adams is lying through his teeth, but that's a different story, and I digress. So my point is, Gregg Abbott has been on both sides of the fence. He might be establishment, he might be based, but now he is revising free speech policies at universities, which is to say, eliminating free speech altogether.
And see, this request for universities to revamp their free speech policies singled out a couple of pro-Palestinian groups. And while it aims to address anti-Semitism, it does not mention Islamophobia.
And we know where this leads. And on both sides of the Israel-Gaza or Israel-Palestine conflict, in the Bay Area, this is recent too, only a month or so ago. Oh, this organization points the finger at that organization, says it's anti-Semitic. And then that organization points the finger back and says, oh, it's anti-Palestine. So that's exactly where this is going to end up. But that's what they want. They want control of everything you say. And as soon as you get a little too spicy, I mean, it doesn't even have to be spicy. You can quite literally ask Zuby, right? He was one of the first ones early on to say, okay, dude, and he was banned from Twitter. But I digress. A different story.
Since the beginning of the latest war between Israel and Hamas, college campuses nationwide have been host to protests like this pro-Palestinian rally at UT Austin in November. And while there have been many peaceful protests nationwide, anti-Semitic incidents on campuses have also reportedly been on the rise. The issue.
It's also pretty funny how the regime, the establishment, for the longest time, called everybody a late 1930s National Socialist, but now they're doing this from the river to the sea thing. Kanye West was, he was persona non grata, couldn't say that, but you also got, Epstein, Weinstein. These things, for better, I hate to say it, but they sometimes come from a kernel of truth, which is what makes it all so sinister, is that these things, especially, we see it all the time from the establishment left. This appears to be coming from the establishment right, but they take one thing that might be true or might have been true several decades or hundreds of years ago and then just extrapolate that and expect you to believe it, even though it's been completely mutilated and bastardized.
Thrust into the national spotlight last year when Ivy League presidents testified before Congress.
Calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
Harvard and the University of Pennsylvania's presidents later resigned.
It's also strange how, these people, they claim to want free speech. Well, we know where that's going. The hypocrisy is through the roof. They want free speech, I want free speech, but you shouldn't have free speech. And then you got groups like the ACLU who is saying that this revision is a threat to free speech, a threat to democracy, whatever. But I'd be curious to see what the ADL has to say about that, because typically the ACLU and the ADL, while not, they probably don't see eye to eye. They're both cogs in the establishment machine that is being used to squash people's every freedom and everything. Before you know it, you will own nothing. You will live in the pod. You will eat the bugs if these organizations get their way.
Governor Abbott Wednesday ordered Texas universities to revise their free speech policies to combat anti-Semitism.
To revise, which means to eliminate completely, because it is a slippery slope.
Including a command to establish appropriate punishments, including expulsion from the institution. The order specifically names 2 pro-Palestinian groups.
I mean, I guess this kind of makes sense, because we all know that if a white kid or a white woman were to drop the N-bomb, she would get expelled, she would get fired from her job, she would go viral. I mean, people would ruin her life. So I guess this is on the same plane as that.
Like I say, the devil's in the details. We have to see what the speech codes say.
Tom Leatherbury is director of the First Amendment.
No, we don't. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because we all know they're not going to stop at that, right? So yeah, the cliff is eroding all around you. So yeah, don't say anything anti-Semitic or you could be expelled. But before you know it, you won't be able to say anything.
Clinic at SMU. While we wait to see what the policies actually look like, he says any policy would need to clear certain legal standards to hold up the challenges.
If it is viewpoint-based, and there are some elements that would make this executive order viewpoint-based, you have to ask yourself whether it would pass strict scrutiny, the constitutional test, or content-based restrictions on speech.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure when they started to care about the Constitution. Now, I guess maybe Governor Abbott does a little bit, but obviously not that much, because he is implementing free speech revisions on college campuses.
Texas chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations condemned the governor's order, writing, advocating for Palestinian rights and criticizing the actions of the Israeli government are not inherently anti-Semitic. Students must be allowed to express their opinions and engage in robust debates on complex geopolitical issues without fear of reprisal or censorship.
Okay, well, half of that is right, okay? So criticizing certain actions is not always anti-Semitic, but then, we must have robust debates? No, they don't. They're going to scream people down at every possible turn. So, I mean, this is, it's a race to the bottom, every single thing, and I can't believe I'm sort of going to bat for the Palestinian protesters' rights or whatever, because I do not have a dog in this conflict fight at all, but I certainly don't want to side with the people that are blocking up traffic. And here I am because Governor Abbott has overstepped the bounds.
The broader the policy, the more protections in the policy, the less it's subject to challenge, because it looks less like a particular viewpoint is being punished.
We reached out to some of our North Texas universities today. The UNT system said that it will review its policy to ensure that it follows the law, including the governor's executive order. The executive order does give the universities 90 days. Then they are to report back to the governor's office on those changes, as well as give evidence that those changes are being enforced.
Yeah, okay. So there's another problem. The executive order. I'm just going to, I said it, so it shall be. It means absolutely nothing. And I guess Gregg Abbott is doing a fairly decent job trying to protect the border, but then he comes out with stuff like this, and it's just all so slimy, because they want to have control. I mean, it appears as if, and I want to give Gregg Abbott, in his little wheelchair rolling around, the benefit of the doubt. But it seems like he is a uniparty swamp monster, and the border is just so overwhelming. He's trying to stop that while doing the corrupt bidding of the regime on the other hand.